Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and it's time once again for Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent role-playing game. Now, every so often I try to take a break from the main storefronts like Steam or GOG to check out some free or budget titles on sites like GameJolt or itch.io, and thus I went searching this week. And after a few false starts, and I'll address those below somewhat, I found an interesting little time waster with RPG elements called Gru the Monster. Gru the Monster is a roguelike stealth-based game that's honestly more strategy puzzle than RPG. In it, you play the part of a Gru, one of the shapeless, man-eating monsters that must stick to darkness lest they be burned away. Your purpose is simply to wander the caves, sticking to the shadows, and consume the various monsters and adventurers that you come across. As you do so, you gain experience from them, and at certain points you get to pick between one of a couple random abilities during a level up. In that, it has a sort of character progression, but as I said, that only barely makes it an RPG. Play proceeds through a series of randomly generated levels. Each level is represented by a hex grid of a cave system with scattered pools of lava that cast light, monsters that roam around in the darkness, and adventurers that have various sorts of light sources. Each turn you may select a space to move to, and then all creatures and adventurers may make their moves. Creatures wander in various directions, but generally can't hurt you directly, while adventurers have light sources and a facing. The adventurers may change facing, which also changes the direction of their light source, or move, and each different type of adventurer has its own shape of light source and follows its own rules for deciding how to turn or to move on any particular turn. As such, each level basically consists of scouting out for targets while sticking to the shadows, identifying the target's movement patterns and how they may interact, and then carefully attempting to sneak up on them through the shadows or even through the walls themselves. If you are caught in the light, whether it be an adventurer's light source or an ambient light level of a lava pool, you die instantly. No health bar, no hits, you're just gone. While you can simply move into a creature's space to eat it, adventurers are another problem entirely. Since they have their light sources on them, you can't directly move into their space. Rather, you have to move into a dark space adjacent to them just as they move into the same space. And then you eat them. And that almost always means that you have to get behind them. Effectively, they back up into the darkness, staring in the other direction, possibly in fear, and then they stumble into your mouth. Simple enough in theory, but it can be a pain in practice, especially when you get multiple adventurers all moving around the same area. As I mentioned before, once you've eaten a certain number of creatures and adventurers combined, you gain a level, and you get to choose between a few randomly chosen abilities. Now, most of these are mobility abilities, with dealing with moving yourself, teleporting around, or even teleporting your targets around, but there are a few that either extinguish light sources on dead adventurers or keep adventurers from moving or turning and so forth. Once you've cleared a map of adventurers, the level is automatically considered cleared, and then you're just immediately given a chance of an upper level, a lower level, or a middle level for the next stage. That will determine what kind of creatures that you encounter on the next map. I should note that only the adventurers are considered in this total, so in order to maximize the kills on the level for experience purposes, you'll want to take out the creatures before eliminating all of the adventurers, as you won't get a chance to go back and mop them up later. Graphically, the game uses a number of tiles from the Battle for Wesnoth game, which are apparently open for use. Likewise, much of the sound effects are taken from that game as well, while the music is typical Kevin MacLeod stuff. It holds up well enough in this regard. It's well chosen and well put together, at least as much as you can expect of a quickly made free RPG that uses out-of-the-box graphics. The game does have a vertical screen layout, because apparently there is an Android version out there somewhere. In terms of gameplay, I admit this is really more of a puzzle game dealing with movement in light source directions than an actual RPG, and yet I think the concept is solid enough, and it does have a character advancement mechanism. It really makes me want some sort of reverse roguelike where you play monsters rather than the hero, or something similar like that. I would love to play some sort of stealth kill-based goblin mission, for instance, especially in a turn-based game like this. Preferably one that takes more than one hit before going down, at least once they've gained a few levels. I also wish there was some sort of gear or stat system involved. I mean, there are stats displayed on screen, but they are really just showing you how many creatures you've killed and how many turns you've taken and things like that, with very little effect on the game besides incrementing them whenever you do something. I should note also that it took a while for me to figure out the movement patterns of a lot of these adventurers, and until I did that, it really just started to feel more like a rock, paper, scissors RPG, with each move the enemy creatures took potentially putting me either more at risk or instantly ending the game. Once I learned it and once I got the patterns down, it ended up feeling a little bit less random, and I was able to consistently advance further and further in the game. So there is some strategy involved. For a free game, it's okay, and once you've achieved a few levels using the abilities you get to start executing stealth moves against larger groups of adventurers can actually feel pretty good and pretty on spot, at least if you're into that sort of thing. I have a few more proper RPGs to touch on in the coming weeks, but I'll probably need to talk about just what qualifies for an RPG soon. This is what I wanted to tell you about earlier. It just seems that the barest of character upgrade systems or even basic NPC interactions seems to justify people stamping an RPG tag on a game nowadays, and that can make it hard sometimes to pick a game to cover when I want to take a break from the usual run of roguelikes and dungeon crawlers and a zillion and a half RPG Maker games that are out there on the big stores. But that's a rant I gotta do in another video. For now, this has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday, Gru the Monster. I'll put a link to the Game Jolt page in the description below. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. If you're feeling particularly generous, I do have a Patreon up at patreon.com/rpgcrawler that you can use to support the channel and reviews like this. Until next time, take care and goodbye.